He says mountains may shake, the earth may quake, but with you, your foundation is strong. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining the channel again. In this series that I have created, Lynn with God, I share my personal experiences of how God has transformed my life to encourage and strengthen your relationship with God. So today we'll be talking about anxiety. Anxiety is something that affects all of us. If we look back in our life, we can remember events that really had us in a chokehold. And not in a sense that, we weren't able to overcome it, because a lot of events we are, but because in that moment, we felt like our life was in a standstill. Time was moving slow. We felt like we lost hope, or we didn't know the next direction to go. And this is exactly how anxiety can feel if you're experiencing it now. It can range from anything as small as exams, thinking about upcoming events that can occur, family health, graduation, next steps in your life, trying to figure out the direction in your life. These are all things that can create anxiety and lead to stress. I'm going to give you my own example to really give clarity on this topic. There was a time where I was in medical school and I was prepping for my first standardized examination. And this is an exam that all medical professionals take. And you have to take it to be able to progress to your third year of clinicals, where you start working in the hospital. So I was very strong in myself. I said, I'm feeling very confident I can do this, right? So then before you take an exam, you do practice tests. And I started to, take those. And the first one was a shocker. I'm going to say that because I really bombed so bad. Like, I can laugh on it now because I'm at the end of my residency journey. But back then it was no joke. Like, there was no laughing. There was actually tears, but we digress. So the first one was a bomb. And I was like, okay, you know what? I can do this. I have faith in myself. Like, let's go. We can do this. Don't worry. So that pushed me to study harder, grind more, be up late. And the more effort I felt like I put in, no results were coming out for me. I would take another exam at the end of the next 2 weeks and nothing changed. Nothing. So I started to become anxious. Not in the sense that I didn't feel like I can do it initially, but because number one, you start to hear other people that are doing so well, they're like, oh, I barely even studied. I barely even did anything. And that came, it came so easy for me. So you start to think to yourself, what is wrong with me? And that's number one, the first thing that I want to hit, A lot of times the things that bring us anxiousness is comparison to other people. Right? In this age of social media, we see it every day. You open your phones and you see the things that people post of what they have, right? But nobody really tells you the grind and the grit and everything that went into them achieving and sustaining what they have now. And that's also why I come here and I share my stories to let you guys know what really happened to me, the things that I've really had to go through. I got out the mud, how the children say, to really be able to get where I am today. So during that time, I was seeing what other people were saying, seeing what other people were doing. And I was just like, okay, what is going on? And that's where I noticed that the anxiety and everything started to come in, right? But I still said, okay, I'm going to trust in myself. I know what I'm doing, all of these things. And the results were just not there. Weeks and weeks and weeks came on, right? And every day, to the point where I was waking up, I would feel so anxious. Before I went to sleep, I was so anxious. When I woke up, I was so anxious. That exam was all that I could think about. And the one thing now, like being stronger in my faith and knowing, is that I, in that point, didn't lean on God as much as I should have. You understand? Like, I know now how good God is and how he got me through that point. You understand? But I thought it was through my own strength that I had to do that. God says, put your burdens onto me. I can give you the ones that are light. You understand? In Psalms 46, it says, God is our refuge and our strength, a very present and well-proved help in times of trouble. And in this time, I was struggling. You understand? I was going through it. And if I lean more on him to say, God, you were the one who got me to this point. It was not through my strength that I got through medical school. It was not through my strength that I went to another country to go and study and made it be safe there and return back here in America and, been in this position. It was through your strength. So even though I feel like my life right now is being shaken, he says mountains may shake, the earth may quake, but with you, your foundation is strong. You understand? So if I had that boldness of like, I serve a big God. You understand? I serve a God, even though seasons may change, he remains the same. So I realized that my trust was more on me and the abilities that I feel like I can do. Yes, I was a great student in school. I excelled, I was very intelligent, I was very smart, but I believe in that stage, in that phase, God wanted to prune me, right? He wanted for me to understand it's not through my own will, but through his power and his strength and what he wants to do in my life. You understand? And now when I look back, it's because like sometimes we can get prideful. We can say, oh, it's through me, I did this. No, 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 no. He wanted to know that if it was not through me, Linda, you would not have been able to be where you are. So I'm so thankful for that. So as we progressed through the studying period and all of that, I was at the point where I was entering into depression. Like I was losing weight, I wasn't eating. All I can think about was this exam. I didn't sleep well at night or anything. And the one good thing about God is that he's so faithful. Like he encouraged me through that period and he talked to me. Even though sometimes now I can understand that his voice was there, I was so anxious I couldn't even hear him. You understand? So that took up my whole life. And at one point people were telling me to delay, to do this. A lot of times you hear so many voices, but the only voice you need to really listen to is the voice of God. And through his mercy and through his grace, I was able to make it through that period. And I'm so grateful that I did. As a psychiatrist, so many people have come to me saying that they're anxious, and asking for some type of relief from this thing. And what I want to tell you is that walking towards God is the key relief that you can have. You understand? It's like he's saying, cast your burdens onto me so that I can give you rest. We have to understand that it is not through our will that things can be done. We think that we have to make a way, we have to provide, we have to create a solution. And God is just saying, if you can just give it to me, if you can just rest, right? And let me direct you to where you'll be able to go, you will have rest. One other thing he's trying to say and let us understand is that why is it that you think that you must provide for yourself? You understand? Like he's saying, if you're doing all this worrying, if you're doing all this stressing, after all of that, how much time can you add to your life? Because one thing I know, I used to worry. I used to be a worrier. And he's like, you can't add anything to your life. No time will be regained from you by just worrying. Throughout my time of just thinking and seeing patients and all of that, and even in my own experience, where is it that we go wrong in anxiety? Like what is it that really cripples us and takes us and like has us not really being able to control what is occurring? And then it dawned on me, it's not for us to control. You understand? It's not for us to direct. A lot of times we want full control. We want it, we want to know, oh, we create a budget sheet, we create a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan, and it must go this direction. And I think the two things that we also have to understand is the fear of what happens when we lose control, and number two, the disappointment that also ensues when what we want doesn't occur when we want it. A lot of times we rely on ourselves. And I was going through the interview process and all of that, and I said, you know what, God, like if you were just able to do it for me, and I think that changed the shift of anxiety that I had. Just saying, God, if you were just so able, rather than, oh, Linda, you did this, you did that, you'll be able to do everything. It shifts your focus and it puts a lot of gratitude on our maker who has done it. So during that time, I remember the interviews open up. So there's a day where your application gets released to all the residency programs that you apply to. And I was just like, all right, God, like if it's by your will, it wasn't me who took me here. So if it is just by your will, and I remember the feeling of when the first one came in and I was like, wow, I'm so, so grateful, and before the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one came, like they kept coming in. And I was just like, wow, I was amazed, and I always thought when I was looking through the requirements of some of these programs and I saw the score cut off and all of that, and I was getting like discouraged, but then God spoke to me and said, like, I will show you a way of how I can do this, you know? And I ended up getting well over 20 plus interviews, you know? And to just give you some context, when you're applying for residency, you apply to an X number of programs. And to feel safe, you need between like 10 and let's say 13 interviews just to feel like you are in a safe space. And I got double that amount, you know? And now looking back, I believe that God was showing me that it is not through my own will and strength, but it's through what he already ordained in my life. And he wanted to show me that it doesn't matter about your step scores. It doesn't matter about anything. I will make a way for you. So what God is trying to tell you is that it doesn't matter the circumstance that you're in right now. I want to provide a way for you. I want to show you who I am, all my glory and majesty, and that I can make a way when you think that there is no way. You understand? Like, he is so good, and he wants to show you that. But the one thing also is like, he's not going to take away our free will, you know? So if you want to keep struggling and keep trying to get it out the mud with yourself and all of that, then he's going to allow you to do that. But if you want to start trusting in him and walking in his steps, he will also allow you to do that. I think one thing that the enemy wants us to think is that even in our struggles that we go through, because even when you're walking with God and all of that, struggles will come. So I don't want you to think that like it's all a merry life that you're living with God. No, struggles and temptation will come. And the enemy tries to come into our lives and tell us, well, if the God that you serve is so big and the God that you serve is so great, why would he let you go through that? Why would he not provide for you? You know, why would he know your bills are lining up? He's not getting that for you. And then he starts to sow seeds of doubt into our lives. And then we're like, well, yeah, if we serve a good God, why is he not providing for us? You know? And the one thing is that God stands outside of time. He wants to do things through us and for us to refine us, you know, to make us more like his son. You understand? To make us release our own will and trust in his plan for our life. I want to talk to the people who are directly stressed about work. You may have a boss who's giving you, I would say, a difficult time. You know, everything that you do, they come back and they're like, oh, this is wrong, this is this. Just like really stressing every part of your life. And every time you go home, you think about work. Every time you're at work, you feel like you're uneasy and all that. God wants you to know that he is there with you. You understand? He has never left you nor forsake you. He is, no matter what evil may come your way, you will be untouched. You understand? Pray to him. Look for him. He says that in Philippians 4, do not be anxious or worried about anything, but in everything with prayer and petition and with thanksgiving, continue to make your requests known to God. You know, don't you think he hears what you're saying to him? Don't you think that he sees the things that are happening to you? But it is through his will that he is making a way for you. You understand? And just be patient. I think we lack so much patience in this life, and we think like, God, just free us from this, you know? Just, if you are a strong God and a good God, and what the devil tries to put in our head, like if he's such a miraculous God, he can just take away everything. But how do we know that we really have faith and we trust in this God? You understand? That even in whatever I'm going through, I know God will make a way. And that is really what faith is. I want to go a little bit deeper into like the bodily things that happen when you experience anxiety. Because throughout my 4 years of training, I have seen repeated things that patients have come back and told me what occurs with them when they start to feel an overwhelmingness of anxiety. You know, they can't sleep. So a place that's supposed to be of rest for you, now you're getting tormented, which I call, from things that are occurring and causing you anxiousness in your life. You know, a place that you're supposed to be resting, a place where you're supposed to be. A lot of times I believe that, you know, you go to sleep, but your spirit is still awake. You know, our body needs rest, but the spirit doesn't. A place you're supposed to be like speaking and communing with God, you are now up, uneasy, wrestling with this thing that is causing you stress. You know, now they're irritable. A person that we know used to be joyous and dancing and happy and singing, now they're like, don't talk to me, I don't want to be disturbed. Like, all I could think about is interacting with this person who is now going to make my life miserable. You know, the one thing I can say is that I have experienced a time dealing with a difficult boss, and I felt like it was like eternity. Like, the time moved so slow. But the one thing that I did is, before my interaction with that person, I prayed. And after I prayed, and the one thing that God is going to do is that he doesn't allow us to carry the burden alone. He sent people my way who would always encourage me and be there for me and speak into my life and let me know the things that God has said to me, you know? So that encouragement during that time was also so essential. And the one thing that I can say, and two things for certain, is that that person cannot stop time. You understand? The time is going and my faith is growing even in it, you know? There's sometimes I learn, sometimes zip it. Like, I don't have to go back and forth with this person, you know? Sometimes I let God work within that person also while I'm just quiet, because they will do things to annoy you or irritate you when I'm just like, you know what? I'm chilling. And I'm gonna let my God take care of you. He said, vengeance is not yours, it's mine. Through my training, I've also come to understand that it's both faith and works. You understand? Like, prayer is the key always through everything. But also, if you're at a point where you're just like, I can't do this anymore, I can't take it, you know, I need additional resources, go and see somebody, go and talk to somebody, because that is also works. You understand? We're not in this life to just be alone. God has equipped people who can just speak into our lives. There's not every patient that I have that I give medication to. Some people just see me for me to just speak into their life, to let them know that they serve a good God, a merciful God, a God who would never leave or forsake them, a God that says, cast your burdens onto me and I will sustain you and uphold you. I will never allow the righteous to be forsaken. There may be people out there that have been in a situation for a couple of months leading into the year, and you started off with having so much faith in God and saying, God, I know you can get me through this. I know you can do it. However, time has progressed and you feel like God has not heard you, you know, and you're like, you know, I prayed to God, I talked to God. Why am I still in this position that I am in right now? And the one thing that I would say to you is ask and keep on asking, you know. Don't you know that the one that who created the ear cannot hear and the one that created the eye cannot see? Like, he knows what you want and he knows the things that you're asking of him, right? But in his perfect time, he'll make it whole. In his perfect time, he'll make it renewed for you. In his perfect time, he'll make a way when you think that there is no way. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like. And if you like this content and want more of it, hit the subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.